I am the sky mother, I am the sky. I am the vast blue ocean of sky. I am a little drop of the sky, frozen sky, frozen sky. I am the sky mother, I am the sky. I am the sky mother, I am the sky. I am the vast blue ocean of sky. I am a little drop of the sky, frozen sky, frozen sky. I am the sky mother, I am the sky. I am the sky mother, I am the sky. I am the vast blue ocean of sky. I am a little drop of the sky, frozen sky, frozen sky. I am the sky mother, I am the sky. I am the sky mother, I am the sky. I am the vast blue ocean of sky. I am a little drop of the sky, frozen sky, frozen sky. I am the sky mother, I am the sky. I am the sky mother, I am the sky. I am the vast blue ocean of sky. I am a little drop of the sky, frozen sky, frozen sky, frozen sky. I am the sky mother, I am the sky. I am the sky mother, I am the sky. I am the vast blue ocean of sky. I am a little drop of the sky, frozen sky, frozen sky. I am the sky mother, I am the sky. From joy I came, for joy I live, in sacred joy I melt again. From joy I came, for joy I live, in sacred joy I melt again. From joy I came, for joy I live, in sacred joy I melt again. From joy I came, for joy I live, in sacred joy I melt again. From joy I came, for for joy, I live in sacred joy, I melt again. From joy I came for joy, I live in sacred joy, I melt again. From joy I came for joy, I live in sacred joy, I melt again. From joy I came for joy, I live in sacred joy, I melt again. From joy I came for joy, I live in sacred joy, I melt again. From joy I came for joy, I live in sacred joy, I melt again. From joy I came for joy, I live in sacred joy, I melt again. From joy I came for joy, I live in sacred joy, I melt again. From joy I came for joy, I live in sacred joy, I melt again. From joy I came for joy, I live in sacred joy, I melt again. From joy I came for joy, I live in sacred joy, I melt again. From joy I came for joy, I live in sacred joy, I melt again. From joy I came for joy, I live in sacred joy, I melt again. From joy I came for joy, I live in sacred joy, I melt again. From joy I came for joy, I live in sacred joy, I melt again.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Let's begin with a prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, beloved God, Great Masters, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswar, Beloved Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda Ji, Saints of all religions, we humbly bow to you all. Beloved Lord, we open ourselves to life's experiences and to the grace that lies behind them. We are thine, eternally thine. Be thou ours. Om. Peace. Amen. Let's begin with our conch. And we'll start with a chant and a short meditation. Listen to my soul song, listen to my heart song, listen to
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our class this morning for Inner Renewal Week. Our topic today is a very, very important one for each of us. It's how do we work out our karma on this inner pilgrimage? And there's two main points that I want to touch on that will develop during my portion of the talk. The first is, why is our karma different? Why is working out our karma different when we are on an inner path, on an inner pilgrimage? And the second point is, what are the techniques and the practices that Master has given us to help us to work out our karma? So let's start at the beginning. A friend of mine sent me a very appropriate quote recently. It's a quote from the author C.S. Lewis, who wrote the Narnia series. And he said, "Many people want to be of service to God, usually in an advisory capacity." And so when we start looking at why is our karma different once we walk the spiritual path, it lies in that amusing quote. Because first of all, I think you've experienced, I've experienced it, that once you start the spiritual journey, your karma comes at an accelerated rate and at an intensified rate. I used to, when I first came to Ananda and was just getting on the path, in those days, there were 1969 summer, there were many people who came here for different reasons. Some were very serious devotees. Some were just part of that culture that was going on at the time, and this was an interesting experiment. And I was puzzled at first because I would watch the different life patterns that people would go through. And the people that were just sort of here casually, everything always went right for them. And the people that were really picking it up from the thread of going deep in God, everything went wrong. Their car broke down, they lost their job, whatever it might be, everything went wrong. And I thought, it doesn't really seem fair. But it took me not very long to realize that there was something else going on. That, as I said, once we begin the spiritual path in earnest, God says, okay, let's bring them the lessons they need, let's give them the support they need, and let's set them on their way so they can find freedom. And so it's so important for us to realize that I've seen this in the life of many devotees I know. Once that accelerated karma starts happening, it's almost as though we go through many lifetimes in one lifetime. And we certainly saw this in a brilliant example in Swamiji's life. You know, he had very succinct periods where, for example, he was writing music and writing the oratorio and 400 pieces of music. And then he said, I'm done. I'm not going to write any more music. I've said what I need to say. Same with with photography, and different stages of his life where and the beautiful thing was people tried to define him by those different stages, but he was not any of those stages. He was working out a particular karma, and also in our own lives. I've seen many people go through succinct periods, maybe a marriage, and then that ends, and you think, oh, well, you know, what kind of karma is that? But we're moving through our karma. It's not like this is good, this is bad. It's just we're moving towards freedom. And so with that accelerated, intensified karma, we have to not be in an advisory capacity to God. We can't say, you know, I think you're not getting this one right. We have to say, I trust. I trust that everything that happens is for, as Master said, all of life's experiences are for our education and entertainment. But how few, he added, are either educated or entertained. And so we just need to trust the process. It's part and parcel of the inner journey. Just as, you know, we were talking yesterday on the climb up to Babaji's cave, you know, it was the last part, when you really got serious, was very steep. And it was 6,000 to 7,000 feet altitude, so it wasn't easy. But if you made up your mind, I'm taking this on, you didn't complain about it. And so whatever happens, you just say, I'm taking this on. I'm not an advisor in an advisory capacity. I'm in a receptive, I'm your student, I am your chela, I'm your child, I'm your disciple. You lead, you paint the picture as you see it. So we need to understand that. And also, our karma is different once we get on the spiritual path. I should touch a little bit more on that first part, the intensified, accelerated. Why is that? I mean, is it just kind of a random thing? No, it's because we're getting in alignment with the flow of energy. And that flow of it, it's sort of like taking off on, on a very fast pace. You can't carry a lot of baggage if you're running fast. You have to strip down to the bare essentials. And so when we're in that intensified flow of energy, that karma, it starts to literally, and we'll talk about this more later in the techniques, it literally starts to shake loose. We're just moving so fast that it can't stay with us. But for it to shake loose, it isn't just like falling off like leaves in fall. It's a process. And that process involves learning and suffering and moving forward. So then when we look at the karma that comes to us on the path, and why it's different from a regular, I shouldn't say a regular person, from a person not on the path. I so often people say, well, what is it like when you go out into the real world? And I have to correct them and say, I really don't see it that way. I think this is the real world. That's the unreal world. But in any case, what's good karma and what's bad karma? Swami gave a wonderful, simple explanation of this. He said, good karma is whatever brings us closer to God, and bad karma is what pulls us back into delusion. And it's a very good yardstick to measure all of our experiences, because if we're going along and understanding the teachings that all circumstances are neutral, it's just how we react to them. So let's say we win the lottery. Is that good karma? Is it bad karma? Well, to a worldly person, that is great karma. But if you ever see those interesting little articles about the people who won the lottery and what happened to them, most of them lost it all through, people, unscrupulous people and so forth. But it wasn't like, my life took a turn for the better. But even if we are a devotee, and let's say we win the lottery, is it good, is it bad? It depends what we do with it. If we use that wealth to help others, to serve the world and give to the needy, then it's very good karma. But if we say, mine, all mine, okay, finally, that's bad karma, because it's taking us into delusion. And the same thing, if we are diagnosed, as we told Andy's story yesterday, with a terminal illness? Is that good karma or bad karma? It depends what we do with it. If it's good karma, as it was for Andy, if we say, I am stronger than anything that comes, let them take my body away, my spirit is undefeated, that's very, very good karma. But if we wallow in self-pity, why me, this is too hard, this is unfair, that's bad karma. So it's really, you can't really call it what the circumstances that happen. There was the story that Swamiji told of a young girl that I think she was alive while he was in India. I don't know that he met her, but he heard of her, and she was reputed to be a very, very saintly soul, and her prayers for others healed them, and many miracles took place through her deep devotion and prayer. And she had in her own personal family, her father was very, very ill, chronically, seriously ill. And everyone said, well, you pray for everyone else. Why don't you pray for your own father? And she said, please don't ask me. Please don't ask me. But the pressure was so great on her from all of her family members that she said, all right, I will do this. And she prayed for him. And he was a very pious man, filled with devotion, and in his illness spent most of his time praying to God. So she prayed for him, and he was healed. But good karma, bad karma. Once he regained his health, he just rushed back to the world for everything he'd been missing, and he led a very dissolute life. And so she, in her spiritual intuition, could see that it wasn't bad karma that he was sick. It was keeping him in a spiritual life. But because through the eyes of the world that was a bad thing, she switched. And so we need to also, if we can look at our karma on the path and really with a neutrality, whatever happens, say, I will face this with the strength and equanimity that I can bring to bear, and then really there isn't any bad karma once we perfect that attitude. So then what are some of the techniques that Master has given us to overcome our karma? I want to start by reading a very powerful quote. This is from the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, Master's commentaries, which Swamiji edited. He says, in karma's realm, karma rules supreme. Yet human beings have the power to withdraw to another realm altogether by attuning themselves with the infinite wisdom behind karmic law. This much freedom is ours eternally, to accept God and His guidance from within, or to be guided by our egoic desires. So that one sentence, human beings have the power to withdraw to another realm altogether by attuning themselves with the wisdom behind karmic law. That's a very powerful, powerful concept. Because what does that mean? In the realm of Maya, there's no way out. Karma is karma. And it's because it's the physical world, it's the law of action and reaction. In the energetic world, it's karma, the law of karma. What you put out comes back. But there's another realm that isn't governed by those laws. And when through purification and attunement with divine wisdom, we can get behind that karmic law, it doesn't mean we escape it. Understand, it isn't like a free pass out of here. It's more that through discipline and effort and attunement, we see behind the curtain, just like the Wizard of Oz. Don't worry about that little man behind the curtain. There is someone, there is a wisdom behind the curtain of this Maya. And once we begin to sense that presence, we are not so bound by karma because we align our will with wisdom. And that is a very, very powerful thing to remember. There is freedom behind this world of delusion, but it takes effort to get there. So what are some of the techniques that Master, and practices that Master gave us to help on our inner pilgrimage to free us from our karma, to work out our karma? Well, as kind of an overview, first to say, Master brought techniques of energy that are applicable to this age of Dwapara Yuga, of the age of energy. And if you recall, all of his teachings have a freshness because he's picking them up from a new point of view. And I found it so fascinating that Swamiji said, when he was writing Master's commentaries, editing, I should say, Master's commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita. He said, this level of understanding, and that is to say where Master explained every character of the Bhagavad Gita, not just as a historical character or a mythological character or a deity, but he explained each one as a psychological trait in the kingdom of our own mind. And it's, it's a breakthrough concept. There are no other interpretations existing now like that. You need to put it in perspective. But Swamiji said, this interpretation was not possible in a lower age. It's only as we move into Dwapara Yuga that people can even begin to accept this level of interpretation. And so we need to see that what Master brought us was every aspect of life, the teachings that he brought were applicable and practicable in Dwapara Yuga, because it's working with energy. And so he said, if we understand, and these are his teachings, karma is just a pattern of energy. That's all it is. And if we think of it as a decree carved in granite, I remember some years ago, Jyotish and I went to do some programs in Croatia with Ananda and Kirtani from our leaders of our center in Assisi. And it was, there was a large meditation group, Ananda meditation group, and the center was in a flat. And Croatia at the time, it looked like it was like frozen in time, like it was just post-World War II. But we went to this old building that had the different flats in it, and the names of the residents in each of the flats was carved in stone. And I thought, my goodness, I've never seen that before, where these people are not going anywhere. But our karma is not carved in stone. It's fluid, it's a pattern of energy. And this is the freeing thought that Master brought. What we have done, we can undo. It's as simple as that. We are not bound by any past thoughts, actions, desires, attachments. It's just a pattern of energy. And that through the techniques Master gave us, we can change that energy. We can work with that energy, transform it into a much more positive, expansive, blissful way of life. And so I think the first practice that Master talked about is the use simply of willpower, because willpower is energy. And whatever action we have done in the past, we need to understand, to undo it, we have to put out greater energy. It's really almost mathematical. So if we've had kind of a slightly critical, judgmental thought about someone, to neutralize that, we have to put out a stronger, more positive thought in that direction, and it neutralizes that little bit of karma that we would have accrued by having judgmental attitude towards another person. Swami gave the illustration, think of it as a bar graph. So if our bad karma is like a line of not a bar graph, but a schematic graph. If it's a line going up like this, well, our positive energy to counter needs to be greater and overarching. And it's a good technique. Whenever you feel you're trapped in something, just try to analyze, what's the level of energy here? How much more do I need to put out to neutralize it? And that gives you something to work with. There's the beautiful story I've always found so fascinating that from Sri Yukteswar's life, where he had a disciple who was a young monk, very devoted young monk, but there was a little subconscious desire, not very strong, but still there, for a relationship. And one day Sri Yukteswar said to him, I'm going to give you a special blessing. Come with me. And they went to the train station, and they got on a train, and the train was in the station, still on the tracks, ready to go. And on the tracks next to him, next to the train, was another train, and the window was open. And this young monk just glanced over at the passenger sitting in the opposite train, and it was a beautiful young woman. And Sri Yukteswar intensified that experience so that the low level of energy of wanting a spiritual partner, he completely, not neutralized it, but he fulfilled it in that one glance, and the karma was over. So we need to understand that by intensification of what we're trying to work with, we neutralize it. And it's important to remember that the gurus do not come to protect us from our karma. You know, we read stories and, you know, that, oh, Babaji strikes the guy with the burning brand, and Lahiri said, how can you do that? And he said, would you rather see him burn to ashes as his karma decrees? Well, we need to balance that with the understanding that the guru is the teacher. He, just as Jyotish in his allegory yesterday, he talked about taking the exam, and he said to Walker, but I haven't prepared for the exam. And Walker said, you've prepared. So the guru inwardly prepares us, but he can't take it away. We have to take the test ourselves. Because if he shielded us from our own karma, how would we ever work it out? And parents, this is an important lesson. I'm saying it, but I mean it seriously. The instinct is, oh, I've got to protect them from this, and oh, we can't let that happen. You need to give them your love and support, but you don't intercede in their karma. It's not a service to them, truly. Something I've learned in my life. And so the guru can shield us, but can't take away the karma. And there's a wonderful story that I recently read about Master's direct disciple. I'm going to ask us to open up the back doors, even if it's a little noisy, just so we can get more fresh air in here, so we don't get sleepy. Signor Quaron was the direct disciple of Master. He was the meditation group leader in Mexico City, and Master was very fond of him. He's a great soul, a great Kriya yogi. Interestingly enough, for those of you who are movie buffs, he is the uncle of Alfonso Cuarón, who directed the movie Gravity and won the Academy Award as the best director. But that's aside. So just to show how, I don't know, spiritual presence runs in families. So Signor Cuarón had a very lucrative job, and then he lost it. And he had enough money from family inheritances and so forth that he and his family could live comfortably but simply. But he wanted a more luxurious lifestyle. So he was looking for a job and really quite pursuing it, and nothing came through. And then he got an offer from another city in Mexico, a company in another city. And they said, we'd like to make you the vice president of this very lucrative company, and will you move? And so Signor Cuarón wrote Master, but really more as a formality. And he said, I'm going to be moving away. This job has been offered to me, just the job I've been waiting for, and we'll need to find another center leader for Mexico City. Master immediately telegrammed him and said, do not take that job. And he didn't explain, but Signor Cuarón, who was a developed enough soul, who was not in an advisory capacity to God, but in a guru-disciple capacity with God, he turned down the job. Okay. Guru says no, must be no. And then some months later, it came out in the paper that this was a fraudulent company. All of the board of executives were arrested. The man who did take the job was arrested and put in prison. And this would have happened to Signor Quaron. And so Master protected him from that. But there's more to the story. Signor Quaron never did get a good job. Master could shield him from the disaster, but by living simply, not trying to get a more opulent lifestyle, he was able to focus his life more on God. And so we need to understand that working as a disciple on the spiritual path, it's so subtle, and we have to summon up so much faith and trust that when we pray, why are you letting this happen to me? Don't pray that. Thank you for letting this happen to me. And, you know, there's another wonderful story from the life of Lahiri Mahashaya about letting our karma come to us, that Lahiri was walking on the streets, presumably of Benares, but I'm not really sure. And he had a disciple with him, and he stopped and he said to his disciple, "Can you tear off a little piece of your dhoti for a bandage, because I'm going to injure my toe?" And the man thought he was, he kind of shrugged it off and didn't do it. And they walked on a little further, and a brick came and fell off the roof, smashed Lahiri's toe. And because the disciple had not torn off fabric for a bandage, Lahiri tore off part of his dhoti, wrapped it up, and the disciple was totally amazed. And he said, "Well, Master, if you knew it was going to happen, why didn't you avoid it?" And Lahiri said, "If I would have avoided it now, it would have come later, but with interest. I'd have to pay interest." And so, did Lahiri have any karma? No, he did not. He was an avatar. Why do such things happen? For us. When they come, instead of saying, "Oh, not that, not that," just say, "Let me get it over with now." Because if I don't do it now, it accrues interest. And when it comes, it's even harder. And so we need to see that we can put out the willpower, the energy, to work with these things and to deal with them in the most uplifted attitude. But the masters won't and can't take it away from us. And if we expect it, we're on the wrong train. It's not going to be the way of our life. And so looking at whatever happens, Master said, I would look at my astrological chart, and I would look at the periods of the most adverse circumstances of the astrological alignment. And I would deliberately choose during that period to try to accomplish difficult things. He said, admittedly, it was a lot harder, but I always was able to do it. And so he said, karma, I don't want to hear about karma. What can I do about it? And so that use of willpower. And then hand in hand with willpower, of course, greater the will, the greater the flow of energy, greater the energy, the greater the magnetism. Magnetism is a very important practice, understanding, for burning up, deflecting karma. That's why Master said to wear an astrological bangle to deflect karma. But the more energy we have, the more we are able to create a magnetic field around us that things just can't penetrate very much. I remember some years ago when we were starting Ananda's work in the Bay Area. We were originally based in San Francisco and then moved down to Palo Alto. And Swami asked Jyotish and me and some others to get started in San Francisco. And Swamiji stayed for the summer and taught classes throughout the San Francisco area. And then the summer was over and Swami was going to come back to Ananda Village. And we were to stay and continue building the work there. And I had a little trepidation. I had lived at Ananda. We both had lived at Ananda for 10 years, and I wasn't real excited about living in San Francisco, but that was what was happening. And then it was the night that Swami was leaving, And, he had sort of been our pillar, and the pillar was moving elsewhere. So, but he said, let's have a nice evening. Let's go out to dinner, and then we'll go see a movie, and just have a nice celebratory evening. So we were happy about this. So we went out to dinner, and then we looked and saw a movie. It was, in case you're interested, it was the old Pride and Prejudice with Laurence Olivier and Greer Garson, which Swami loved that movie. And we saw it at kind of a small theater, and we went there, but we didn't think through, and it was sort of a crowded area, so we had to park quite a distance away. We didn't think through the timing and the location. And when we got out, it was late on a Saturday night, and it was in the middle of a really bad part of town. And there was everything you can imagine was right there. And we had to walk through it for many blocks to get to the car. And I kind of thought, okay, here we go. But Swamiji, I could feel, put out a magnetic force field. I mean, one could feel it, literally. And it was like he was the prow of a ship, and there were about, 10 of us behind him. And he just moved through all that delusion, people selling everything you could ever want to buy and never want to buy. And there it was. And we just moved through it, and we got to the car, and I knew why it had happened. Because he wanted to show us, okay, you're going to be living here now. You're going to be having to mix and go and do all sorts of things in this city. And if you keep your magnetism strong, nothing can touch you. And so remember that. And don't just, it's good to put out energy, willpower, but then the concomitant part of that is that it creates a magnetic field. And when we walk in that field, and sometimes I literally, if I'm in an airport or on an airplane and everyone's coughing and, it's closed air system, I just consciously surround myself with a magnetic field. And we don't get sick much in traveling because it's really putting out that magnetism to deflect whatever might be coming. Okay, what are some of the other things Master gave us as tools? Of course, meditation. To deflect karma, how does that work? Well, Master said fascinatingly, every time we meditate, our karma decreases. Every single time we meditate, our karma decreases because the energy we bring to the different areas of the brain burns up old brain cells. It's an amazing concept. And again, take seriously every meditation. I'm burning up karma. I am moving towards freedom. But also he said, and this is really wonderful, he said, karma, good, bad karma, is tied to us to the post of ego. And so he said the ego is an aspect of the astral body, just as karma is an aspect of astral energy. And that the more we are identified with ego, the more there's the hitching post that the karma is drawn to. And the more through meditation we begin to dissolve that vortex of egoic awareness and expand it into self-awareness, self-realization, the karma doesn't have a sticking post to come to. So it's sort of like the light coming through from a projection booth of a movie, and there's light and shadow and good and bad karma, but if there's no screen to catch it, there's no picture, there's no drama, there's no story. And we put up a wall. This is who I am. Look, see? And then the karma shines right on there and it activates the story. We have a very good friend who's a young man who's part of the meditation group, the center in Mumbai. And if you're watching, hello, Samnat. And he's a very interesting fellow, complex fellow, very brilliant, but also one of the leading martial artists in the country. He's in his mid-20s. but he has won many, many national competitions. And I've never seen him, but he's a little, he talks about it. He talks about these matches, and he said, "Oh, my mother doesn't come, she can't stand to watch what will happen." But he told us about a match, a national freestyle match that he won last year, 2014. And he saw it advertised, and he told his mother, "Oh, I'm going to enter in competition here." And his mother said, "Somnat, you haven't really been in training. You work out, but these guys, I mean, they're in serious training to win this competition." And this Somnat is a Kriyaban, a disciple. And he said, "Mom, I've been meditating. I've been doing my Kriya. I think I'll be able to do it." So he entered the competition, and he said, "I had an experience unlike anything I'd ever had. I felt like I was watching it. And I would look at my opponent during the match, and I would see this leg come up and hit him on the side of the head, and I realized that was my leg. And then he would start coming towards me, and I just wasn't there. And he won first place in the national competition for freestyle martial arts of India. That's a very competitive thing. But the way he was able to do it was there was no egoic point of self-reference. He just wasn't there. And so the blows, which we can interpret as the karmic energy coming to him, it couldn't find a place to land. And so it's the same. The more we can say, and not just say, but in meditation, experience, I am not this body, I am not this personality, I am not my thoughts, my feelings, my breath. No one dwells in this body, as Master said, but God. There's no place for the karmic to land because the ego is its hitching point.
What he did with the medal.
Oh yeah, okay. This was very difficult for me. He came up to us after a satsang. He came to Pune where we were doing a satsang, and he gave us the medal. And I didn't know what to do with it. And I said, "Oh, Somnat, you can't give us your medal. This is something for you to keep." And then luckily the thought came into my mind. And then he said, "But I would always give Swamiji my medals." And I said, "Well, what did Swami do with them?" And he said he would bless them and give them back to me. So that's what we did. So then we come moving from meditation to Kriya Yoga. And there's so many ways we can talk about Kriya, but in this context we're talking today, Kriya is willpower, energy, plus magnetism applied to meditation. It's bringing them all together. And so when we, with energy, magnetically raise the energy up in the spine, it's like a powerful vortex that you can think of our bad karma as little dead leaves, dry leaves in stagnant pools. And then you bring in this current of karma, and it just washes it away. And changes again, the practice of Kriya changes the molecular structure of the brain so that those grooves, those karmic patterns, and that's all karma is. Master called it grooves in the brain. We could call it programs, computer programs, but it neutralizes them, it demagnetizes, destabilizes them so that they can be dissipated. Now, so Kriya Yoga as an adjunct to meditation. Now there's two more points I want to make, and then Jyotish will share techniques that Master gave us. One, of course, is alignment with the will of the Guru, of the teacher, of the guide. Because the teacher knows what tests we need, what tests can be ameliorated. And as I said, I don't think we get away with anything. Nothing gets on, no stitches left unplucked, but nevertheless, he can tell which pattern we need to walk. And I remember some years ago, Swami Kriyananda was giving a Kriya Yoga initiation, and we each went up for his blessing. Excuse me. And afterwards, he said, there was a small group around him afterwards, and he said something very, very interesting that I'd never heard him say before or since. He said, Swamiji said, I had a very interesting experience myself when I was blessing each one of you, because I could feel the unique path that each one of you would walk to find God. And it was different, and there was different karmic tests, but I could sense it. And the spiritual guide, Walker, Walter, Swamiji, they can see what we need to go through. They don't try to shield us from it, but it's all a beautiful lesson plan. And if we have faith in the Guru, when something comes, when we receive a medical report that we really didn't want to hear, if we can just say, part of the lesson plan that the Guru has given for my freedom, and just work. Remember that wonderful quote, to get to another world altogether by aligning ourselves with the wisdom behind karmic law. That's the Guru-disciple relationship right there. Aligning ourselves with divine wisdom. And then finally, I think probably last is best. We were talking with someone last night someone called us, and they're going through a difficult test right now, and they weren't sure of the Dharma of it. And we talked to them for a while, and then the person felt much better. And then they texted us this little message, Dharma bats last. Meaning that it has the last say. You know, if you're the last batter, you have a chance to win. For those of you who didn't grow up in America. So, anyway, I was glad that person understood that. But
What was it again? What was it?
Dharma bats last. Bats last. So, devotion. Devotion is the greatest purifier. It is the greatest tool we have to get through our karma. Whatever happens, if our love for God never wavers, that is the ultimate purification. There's the beautiful story that Swami tells. It's from the life of a woman Sufi saint, Rabia was her name, I believe. And at the end of her life, she was in a great deal of physical suffering, and her disciples were around her. And they said, "Oh, Mother, he is not a true lover of God who is not willing to suffer for the sake of the beloved." And she kind of opened her eyes and said, "That smacks of ego." And then the next disciple said, "Mother, he is no true lover of God who isn't happy to suffer in the thought of the beloved Lord." And she said, "That still smacks of ego." And they finally surrendered and said, "Mother, you teach us." And she said, "He is no true lover of God who does not forget his suffering in contemplation of the beloved Lord." And so devotion is that which frees us from that point of egoic involvement, from to be vulnerable to the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, as Hamlet said, and to be able to eventually just stand and say, "It's been a good show, Lord, but I see it all now. It was always your love behind the illness, the loss, the lottery, whatever it might have been. It was only you." And I would like to just conclude with a beautiful passage which shows us our next step. This is from The Essence of Self-Realization. It's from the chapter on working out karma. To a struggling disciple, Master said, your job for now is to get to God. Don't worry about all the karma you will still have to complete. Let God worry about that. First, destroy in yourself the source of karmic involvement. That source is your attachment to the ego. Once the ego is merged in him, then any actions you perform will no longer revert to you. Your actions will be like writing on water. They will leave no trace in the mind. In severing yourself from egoic involvement, in any action that you perform, you will have cut the Gordian knot of delusion. This is the state of the Jivan Mukta, one who is free inside even while living in this world. Being inwardly free, nothing he does can ever affect him again. And so Swamiji gave us that challenge, that goal, that each of us should strive to be Jivan Muktas. If through the grace of God, through our attunement, through our devotion, we can lose the identity, the attachment to the ego, we can find that with the grace of God.
There are certain things that we can do, that we have under our power to do, that will help untie this karmic knot. First of all, avoiding it is not one of those tools. As Devi had said, Ananda in a talk a couple of weeks ago, touching on this subject, said that there's a particular kind of karma that is your life karma, and that is like an arrow shot from a bow. And that karma is already comes with you at the time of your birth. That arrow is already gone from the bow. And so that karma is going to come to you no matter what. Now, who is the cause of that karma? Because if that arrow is coming, a lot of times, if we're struck with something, we blame the arrow. If a boss is nasty to us, we blame the boss. If our parents, half of modern psychology is built around blaming our parents for what they've done to us and how they've scarred us. Who is your parent karmically? Who unleashed that arrow toward you? You in your last life or your preceding lives. So you're your own parent. You're your own causative factor. And so is that arrow sent in order to harm or in order to cure? That's the real question. If it's sent in order to harm, then the wise person says, well, let me get out of the way. If it is sent in order to cure, the wise person says, let it come, let it come. As Devi was talking about that graph that Swami drew, the energy goes up, and Swami actually said that there are two ways of overcoming it. That energy goes up, and it peaks, and in time it begins to dissipate, and it goes down. That doesn't mean that it won't come again in that sense, but we've all seen tests that we kind of avoid and they seem to disappear. They're still latent. We still have to go through them, but for that period of time, they disappear. But Swami said, if we bring a higher energy and neutralize it, then not only is it done, it disappears, but there's no latent energy to go down and to have to come back again. And so how do we bring that higher energy? What does that really mean in our life? The most important thing, I've been talking about if that arrow is coming, we have to accept the fact that it's coming. We have to accept the fact that it is coming toward us and that we ourselves have unleashed it or drawn it and that it's for our own good. And so acceptance is like kind of just getting up and meeting that karma coming. But there's a higher energy, and that's appreciation. And so if instead of just grudgingly accepting what comes to us, we're thankful for it, then that is the kind of energy that brings us above the karmic test that's coming. And those tests are coming. We come into this life with a particular kind of pattern to learn. It's all for our freedom. Davy and I had a very interesting reading called a Nadi reading. You've probably heard about Swami's Brgu reading. Well, this is the same kind of thing. You go to a reader and there are ancient papyrus leaves or palm leaves and slokas written on it in Sanskrit. And we did that about a year and a half ago in Bangalore. And it was amazingly accurate, absolutely amazingly accurate. I mean, told us how many that our son and that he was going through a difficult time and how many children he had and what their ages were and what our health patterns were and that Davy tended to eat her food too quickly. And so just dozens of little checkable facts. And he said that one of the life that Davy and I had been on this path for many lifetimes with the same three masters, Swami, Master, and Babaji, and that we had done this, and that the reason that we were in this lifetime is that we'd been doing much the same thing for a long time. In the last lifetime, we had done a lot of writing. In this lifetime, we had to do more speaking to finish out whatever the karmic plan was for us. So you're all helping us finish out our karmic, whatever it is, our karmic load, what we have to do in order to have our freedom. So even though I have a tendency toward a kind of a hermetic consciousness, and so public speaking is like, oh no, not again. I've learned not only to accept, but to be thankful for that opportunity. Our likes and dislikes are grossly overrated by our own consciousness. It doesn't matter very much whether you like something or don't like something. If it's right, not only do it, but be thankful for the opportunity to do it. Because otherwise, you won't neutralize that karma that's coming to you. And so that attitude of gratitude is extremely important. You know, every time we do the fire ceremony at the beginning of Sunday service, we do two things. We offer two mantras, the Gayatri mantra, and we offer ghee. And the offering of that ghee is the purified energy of the heart. What that means is that we take our likes and our dislikes and we offer them in an upward direction into the fire or the light at the spiritual eye. And so, and then we do the Mahamrityunjaya, it's escaped me mantra, and we offer the seeds of karma, seeds of rice, and we put those into the fire, and they're burnt up and purified. Those are symbolic of the inner process of freeing ourselves, of overcoming our karma. So the first and most important is the Gayatri mantra and the offering up of the ghee or the purified energy from the heart. Because our likes and dislikes, the heart is a very pivotal energy, a very pivotal chakra. It's where we feel likes and dislikes, the feelings, chittva. And Master called them the primordial feeling nature, which is much more important than our mind. So that primordial feeling nature, we can either allow those energies, that feeling nature, to go downward and contracting and bringing the ego more clearly into focus, putting up a bigger wall so that the karmic pattern can shine on it ever more clearly. or we can offer that energy upward. And when we offer it upward into the light of the spiritual eye, as Master said, that actually burns up old brain cells. It changes our karmic patterns. It releases that. It puts the energy out that neutralizes our karma. So most important of all is the offering up of the positive feelings when a karmic tests come. And the positive feelings in the mind are extremely powerful. You know, what the Dr. Peter will concur with this diagnosis. You know what the most powerful drug of all is? A placebo. Because every drug that is tried to be released has to go through testing, and they have to test it against the placebo. And so the placebo is universal. What that placebo is if we believe that something will be helpful, it will be helpful. Because the real curative part of anything is life force. That's what cures. And life force, as we know from our path, is under the control of our consciousness. And so, if by our belief we think that something is going to be helpful, it will be helpful. And in fact, they even found, I just saw last week, that they found that if you give a placebo to a person that costs, for instance, an injection for a person with cancer, and that injection of saline solution costs $1,000 for that injection, you give a group $1,000 worth of saline solution or $100 worth of saline solution, the $1,000 solution works better because there's more belief that it will be curative. So bring that back to karma and what's coming. If we believe that it's good for us, if that positive attitude toward it is there, then that, call it placebo, karmic placebo, because all conditions are neutral, that karmic placebo is going to fix our ignorance. But if we don't believe it and we reject it, what's going to happen? And so it's very, very much according to our attitude of how quickly we're going to work out our karma. So, to return and put it in very succinct terms, the more your appreciation for what happens to you in life, the faster you will work out your karma. And the more complete that appreciation is for everything, the faster you will work out all of your karma. Because if you've got parts that you're still rejecting, then they're going to come back with interest, and you have to work them off again. So appreciation is extremely important. It's also helpful to try a little bit to realize why you have drawn this particular karma. I say a little bit because I just wrote a blog, the last Touch of Light was on the subject, understanding is overrated. And so to intuitively understand or intuitively figure out why this karma is coming is very, very helpful. To run tapes in your mind endlessly trying to understand is not very helpful, because those tapes tend to run with your own negative emotions. Mostly when you try to figure out why somebody did something to you, you figure out endless tapes with why they're wrong and you're right. And that actually hurts your ability to overcome karma. It doesn't help. One time I started out the Touch of Light last week was telling this story that one time Swami was talking with me to overcome a tendency that I had relatively early on in the path of being overly intellectual and overly analytic. And he was trying to help me overcome that and balance that out. And I said, I understand, sir, after he had talked with me kindly. And he just looked at me and very kindly said, I don't care whether you understand or not. I want you to change. And it was very, very important, because a lot of us have the mistaken impression that unless we understand something, we can't change it. And as I said in the blog, that's like thinking that we can't change a light bulb unless we understand electricity. And so just change. You don't have to do a whole lot of meditation, a whole lot of understanding, but it does help intuitively to try to have a feeling for what is it in me, especially when you draw the same lesson over and over again. Does that resonate with anybody? If you're drawing the same lesson plan over and over again, then it helps to understand that there's a pattern there and why you keep drawing that. But as I say, blaming the arrow instead of the one who shot the arrow, which is you, is not going to help it. So try to intuitively understand from your own soul nature why you have sent that lesson plan to yourself. And now it's arriving sometime after you've sent it, and you no longer remember why you sent it or what it's supposed to be about. But it's in there because you yourself unleashed it. You yourself can intuit why it was sent. So do try to understand, or intuit, but not too much. Don't let your mind just run tapes. It's better just to say, thank you, God, to everything. Help me to change. And just work on that level. Then the next thing that is really, really helpful, overcoming karma, is to recognize that you're not in this by yourself. That ultimately, on the highest level, God, the guru, the teacher, all of your friends, it's all you. So unleashing that arrow in your higher self is God is doing it, but not God separate from you doing it to you. It's all one. But we don't think that way normally. We're relativistic in our thinking. And so we think in terms of, as long as we have ego, we think in terms of I and others. Well, as long as we're still in that delusion, then call upon others as forms of God, even not as forms of God, but on others to help you through this. Most especially, call upon God and Guru, because Guru, the high Guru, Yogananda being a Satguru, is God in finite form that we have a personal connection with. And because of that personal connection, that God responds, God gives back to those who give to Him, God responds to those who call on Him. So God, in the form of Master, we call on Master and God responds in that way. So understand whatever you're going through, that Master will help you go through it. He won't take it away. Devi said that point very clearly, and it's very important. Do not pray to have things taken away from you. Pray for the grace and the power to overcome them and be done with them. You know, we have many, many healing prayers, and it's one of the central parts of the whole work of Ananda to do these healing prayers. We have 750 or 800 people. That's just out of the healing prayer ministry that we have from Ananda Sangha here. And people get healing prayers sent to them, or names sent to them, and then they pray for those people. And sometimes they know the condition that they're praying for, and usually they do. And they pray for that person. Well, we do hear many, many stories of people being cured, of people being, of that karmic circumstances changing. And that's a very good thing. Pray for others, because maybe your prayers will be something that can, if not divert the arrow that's coming, to be like a shield that arrow hits, and the person doesn't have to suffer so much. The arrow is still coming, tied to their own ego, but maybe the prayer can act as a shield. But many people still go through what they're going to go through. But the real power of the prayer is not to change that karma, but to help that person be in an uplifted state of grace, so that when that karma comes through, they don't have the element of blame. They don't have the element of rejection, but they're uplifted so that they can learn their karmic lesson. It's much more important that they learn the karmic lesson than that they avoid the karma and don't learn the lesson, and it submerges again, only to come up. So when we pray for others, and it's very, very important that we pray for others. When we pray for them, pray for their grace, their understanding. Don't pray that the disease go away, as Davy told the story of that woman who was kind of forced to pray that the disease of her father went away, and it turned out badly. Pray that the karma goes away. Pray that the karmic lessons are learned. Pray for them to be in an uplifted state so that they can overcome whatever that karma is. And then prayers of that nature can be extremely helpful, not only to them, but to you as the channel of praying for them. And it's a very, very good thing to do. So here, when you're going through karma, call on God, call on Master, or whatever form of God that resonates for you, and call upon the friends and your Guru Bhais to help support you and strengthen you and be sometimes your guides to help you go through whatever you're going to go through in the best possible way, so that you neutralize that karma and you're done with it forever. As I say, you don't have to understand it, you just have to neutralize it. And so pray for the neutralization, the learning, and the untying of those karmic patterns. And we have lots and lots of them kind of there in our spine. But in the light, they can't, as long as we're in the light, they can't touch us. And so pray to God, Guru, and work with your Guru Bhais, because especially in this community, that's one of the differences, as Davy was talking about, one of the differences between karma for the devotee and karma for the worldly person. The karma for the worldly person, often they have to go through that without much support. Maybe they have some family around them, a few friends, but often in the world, they're in a milieu of people that say, oh, good. Look at I hope they really suffer. They said a nasty thing to me a month ago. I hope they really get it now. So in that mixed environment, heterogeneous consciousness, most people have to go through what they go through without a great deal of support. And we get a lot of prayers, requests. Basically, can you support me? Can you help me? I feel so alone. I feel so abandoned when I'm going through that. The devotee, and especially the devotees that are connected with Ananda, We never have to go through anything alone. We always have others supporting us and helping us. We were just talking with Lisa and Bajrang yesterday, who he's just had an operation and is going through a healing process. And many, many people in the community have been praying. He said they can feel it like a breeze coming through. The prayers are so powerful and so helpful that we all help each other. And as I say, when we help each other, we also help clean our own consciousness, our own energy, the upward moving energy of the heart, by desiring good for others. That which you desire for others is the kind of karma that you will get in the future, unless you get that screen of the ego eliminated. But if you do good, if you desire good, if you give to others, that's what will come. All things in the future will improve, Sri Yukteswar said, if you're making the right spiritual effort now. And so part of it is not only to do what we can to work through it, but help each other to work through it. And that's a very, very important part. And then the final point that I want to make is that we can't necessarily change the karma that's coming. The ride that we're going to take in this life is like a roller coaster. And we chose to get on that roller coaster in that particular car and that particular ride at the time that we were born, or even before we were born, because we chose it in the astral world, and then we chose to come into this world at a time with the parents, in the nation, in all of the circumstances, so that we could get in that car and take that ride. And so that ride is going to take place. The ride of your life is going to happen. Don't try to avoid it, but you can either enjoy the ride or you can hate the ride. And the power to choose is under your control. I loved something that happened to Jaya, because in India, when you speak, many Indian audiences are more, they're more interested in phenomenon. And so Jaya had given a talk and was taking some question and answers, and somebody raised their hand and said, well, you've been practicing Kriya and on this path for a long time. Do you have any powers? Have you developed powers? And Jaya said, no, I can't say that I have. Then he paused and he said, though, I have developed one power. I've developed the power to choose to be happy under any circumstance. Said, unfortunately, I don't always remember to use that power. But I've developed it. And all of us on this path, to a certain extent, or to a greater extent, have developed the power under our own control to be happy no matter what happens. Master said to be even-minded and cheerful in all circumstances. And then on the path as devotees, there is an even deeper expression of the power to be happy, to choose to be happy. Because happiness is the faint echo of our own natural bliss. And so, as devotees, you and I have the power in every single meditation and every single life circumstance to tap in to our own innate bliss. And if we can stay in a bubble of bliss the way Oliver Black did. If we stay in that bubble of bliss, then nothing and no one can hurt us. And that's the power that this path will give us. So at the end of meditation, after your techniques, after your concentration, before you leave, tap in to your own innate bliss and try to live in that bliss from the time you leave your meditation on. Because that is, if you can come back to your own Sat Chit Ananda in meditation and then maintain that, then everything gets untied. Everything, as it says in the Mahabharata, is exceedingly wonderful.